We welcome you to our lecture this evening as we pursue together the concept of the Golden Age, and is it a reality? We wish to speak about past Golden Ages, future Golden Ages, the Golden Age at the individual level of consciousness, and the Golden Age as the collective fulfillment of a society, the collective fulfillment of a group mandala, and of the realization of the potential of karma and dharma in civilization. I would like to point out a pattern of energy flow which I believe will help us to understand where we are now in terms of looking ahead to the golden age of the individual, of the nation, and the planet. The very simple pattern of the figure 8, which we draw, is an illustration of the macrocosm and the microcosm. Simply the great world and the little world. The figure 8 is the pattern of energy flow, of cycling of energy, from your inner reality to your outer manifestation. We might call it the universe of spirit and the universe of matter. And we speak of the nexus of the figure 8, where the lines cross, as being the point of precipitation. That if we try to build totally in spirit or totally in matter, we do not achieve the full integration of our potential. But only in the fusion of the two can we realize the concept of a golden age. The spirals of flow are from the source into manifestation, and they pursue the return. This point of crystallization, we call it the crystallization of the God flame, is the Christ realization. And we speak of Christ as a name for the Word or the Logos or the creative potential that we have as the spark of life. Not as the man Jesus, but as the Christ whom he declared before Abraham was, I am. The essential nature of the sons and daughters of God, that all peoples in all religions throughout the world since the beginning of time and space have had as the potential to realize in matter that which they contain essentially in spirit, to return to spirit that which they have realized in matter. This continual process of energy flow is the nature of creativity. Without flow, we cannot have a golden age in consciousness or in manifestation. We find then, when individuals or civilizations stop the flow of the creative energy of life by the denial either of the inner or the outer man, then instead of a golden age, we have disintegration, decay, and the downward spiral that have marked the decline of many civilizations in recent and ancient history. We would like to explore this evening what are the standards of a golden age society, what are the standards of a golden age consciousness, how we can fulfill these standards, why we are not, and what we can do about it. First, I'd like to give a brief outline from our book, Climb the Highest Mountain, which is a textbook of the teachings of the Great White Brotherhood, from our chapter on the ideal society. It is long erased from our memory except in the concept of a dream of a golden age. It is long forgotten that Earth has had golden ages, and historians count as fairy tale or legend or mythology those periods early in history before what has been called the fall of man, which is not really the fall of man, but it is the descent of the feminine ray, the descent of the female principle. Prior to the descent of that energy and the subjugation of the feminine aspect of man and woman, there was the fusion of the macrocosm and the microcosm, and because it existed once, We have the continuing dream and the striving for its realization. We see the Grail, and we remember that quest of the Holy Grail as more than a quest for the cup from which Christ drank at the Last Supper, but it was the dream of King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, to create that Golden Age society which Plato had dreamed of, Francis Bacon later wrote about, and also Thomas More in his Utopia. And we in our childhood dreams have also longed for this ideal society, and we speak of the idealism of youth, the reaching out for that which is perhaps unrealistic, impractical, but it is that surge of creative energy that is not yet stagnated, that flow of life as above, so below, that gives us the sense that we can create the fusion here and now of spirit and matter that will enable us to realize individually and collectively that Golden Age society. The dream is also recorded in the prophecy of John in the book of Revelation. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. The Lamb is another symbol for this Christos, this portion of the self that is the point, the nexus of the flow of crystallization. It appears again and again. And the mystery of the unicorn, the pursuit of that unicorn, that fabled animal, what was its mystery? What was its essential energy? It was the energy of flow. So under the tutelage of cosmic beings, Manus of the races, there were first 3 golden ages that have been recorded by a number of mystics and writers in the last 100 years. These golden ages taking place on this continent and on the continent of Lemuria. A race of beings who never descended from their primal awareness of God in the chakras or centers of God awareness that are the third eye, the crown, the throat, and the heart. Maintaining awareness of self in the upper half of being, they were able to control the lower half, the lower chakras, and to release energy through the heart for, again, that crystallization of the God flame that makes a golden age. Our own heart chakra is the point of the nexus in the figure 8. It is the center of our being. Energies rise, energies descend, and the action of the Kundalini, the raising of the mother flame, is a part of the rising process, the drawing forth of the energy from the inner causal body, the consciousness that surrounds the inner I am presence, the descent of that energy, the rising of the energies of the mother, the fusion of these energies of the heart, is the release of creativity within you, one by one, that creates the components of a Golden Age society. The citizens, then, of these societies, which stretched around the world, were of what has been called the first 3 root races, the first 3 life waves to inhabit the earth. They never lost vision of their reality. They saw this Christos in one another and loved all with whom they shared the goal of becoming more of God. This was the goal of life, to become, to put on the garment of God's consciousness, to realize more of God as the essential element of self. They loved a man for his intrinsic worth and the unique design of his life stream, even before the God idea matured. In other words, with the development of the third eye, they had the ability to hold a blueprint or a matrix that could be filled in and realized. We find today the absence of goals, the absence of that pattern, because we do not understand the origin or the ultimate of our existence. The family embodying the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which is simply 3 words that indicate power, wisdom, and love, the 3 components or the 3 aspects that are the foundation of the flame of life, is the basic unit of the divine society, the family, because it is a nucleus of the Trinity. The Atlantean origin of the word family is father, mother, flames in loving union. Family is a code name, as many words in our English language are code names that have actually descended from the Atlantean tongue and from symbols, sacred symbols of Lemuria, which Churchward mentions in his books on the lost continent of Mu. Government and education in the ideal society are instruments for the development of the individual potential of man in harmony with all members of the community. This flow of harmony is this flow of the figure-8 pattern, where the realization of the golden age comes because there is a sense of the unity of what is known as the body of God. Seeing ourselves as cells in the body of God, as components for the realization of a grand design. Instead of striving against one another, atoms, molecules, systems working in harmony, and all understanding that functions of the individualization of the God flame are necessary to the creation of a whole. Instead of competition and a pulling against one another, there is this goal toward fusion, because in each man there is this sense of the fusion of the reality of the inner with the outer. All institutions, public and private, stress the unity of life through its triune aspects of faith and hope and charity. Again, the Trinity. The Trinity is realized in the name of God, Om, that comes through the Sanskrit. And the Sanskrit also comes down to us from the Lemurian tongue, the most ancient language. And the Om is the symbol of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, converging in the center for the precipitation of U, the A-U-M. The intonation of this word draws your soul back into the inner reality of selfhood. Balanced in the Trinity, it is able then to bring forth the masculine principle, the feminine principle, in perfect balance in each individual, making for the precipitation or the crystallization of the Christ consciousness. So these aspects, embraced as power, wisdom, and love of God, the Trinity in action and a striving for excellency in all things, are the motivating forces. Striving for excellency, almost non-existent in our world today, and yet it is what has built every great civilization, including America. Learn to love, to do well, and you shall. This was the maxim of Casimir Poseidon, who ruled an ancient civilization that flourished where the Amazon basin now is. Loving to do well is the theme of the building of a great society. When people lose the momentum of loving to do well, they lose their momentum of striving for excellency. Mediocrity sets in, the destruction of creativity. Then there is the stoppage of the flow, the control of the individual by the state, not for the release of creativity, but for the glory of the state. Hence, the state begins to replace the macrocosm of man's being. He is cut off from that flow, that energy of the causal body, and he becomes the outpicturization below of the state above. But of course, the state can never replace the spirit, the elements of reality, and therefore there is decay and decline. When the state intrudes itself, replacing values of the state for the inner religion of the soul, which always seeks to be wedded to God, religio, to bind. Binding the soul to God is the purpose of religion, not encasing the soul in doctrine or dogma, whether it be of the church or of the state. In the Golden Age society, adherence to this principle of learning to love, to do well, kept each soul striving to excel beyond the attainment of yesterday. Every form of activity, from athletics to mutual service, was seen as recreation, the recreation of the qualities of the Holy Spirit in man and nature. Recreation means to go over the lines of flow, continually, daily, dipping into the inner source and creating in the without, then consecrating the without to the inner source and sending it back to the source, so the flow never stops. We are seeking that contact with the source today. In meditation, we know there is that inner wellspring of life from which all creativity and life and golden ages come. By whatever means or teaching we can find, we are pursuing a golden age of consciousness. We are pursuing flow because we sense the stagnation of our bodies, our minds, our souls, and we know that the end of stagnation is death. There is much about the ideal society taken from the records of Akasha that you can read in Climb the Highest Mountain. I'm just touching on a few points. The leaders in the ideal society are the priest-king scientists. There is no separation between government, science, and religion, which are seen as a manifestation, again, of the tripartite flame of power, wisdom, and love. Positions of authority in the temples and in governmental, educational, and scientific institutions are awarded to those initiates who have passed certain degrees of self-mastery and who are thereby qualified to rule and make decisions on behalf of those still going through the tests and initiations which all must eventually pass in order to win their immortality. These tests are always the testing of the individual's ability to balance the energies of the yin and the yang, the within and the without, the macrocosm and the microcosm. And the perfect balance of the Tai Chi in movement, in body, in soul, in mind, in feeling, gives the individual the right to rule in the flame of power as the authority of the state, the right to rule in the flame of wisdom, focusing the mind of the you, the mind of the Christ, the right to rule as a scientist who implements the flame of love in the control of matter. This is the role of the scientist, implementing the flame of love, because love is the energy of creativity, and science is the definition of creativity in spirit and in matter. When science fails to include the cause behind the effect, the spiritual flow of love behind causes in manifestation, it no longer is manifesting the science of God, but becomes the science of man, of the manifestation excluding its inner light and therefore stopping the flow. In Golden Age societies, souls newly come into the world of form go through a very exacting program of discipline and education. In early years, they are taught the rudimentary science of the psyche being a word for soul and the potential of the soul, how to develop their senses to contact physical and metaphysical dimensions of reality, metaphysical being above the physical or beyond the concrete, and how to expand the faculties of the soul to probe cosmos through nature. They are taught communion with all life through the focusing of their attention within the heart and establishing an arc from the heart chakra, from the fire of the heart to all things living, to the hearts of plants and trees and flowers, the very elements in the fiery core of the atom. The mastery of levitation, precipitation, and the science of alchemy are also a part of the curriculum in early years of soul development. Flying saucers are remnants of Golden Age science, the power of levitation, the power to levitate by an extraordinary means. However, the presence of flying saucers does not indicate that they are coming from Golden Age societies, for once that knowledge is attained, it is often retained even after the decline and the fall of the society because of the neglect of the inner flame. Higher education is based on a series of initiations leading to cosmic mastery, whereby individuals then qualify for positions in government, science, education, and temple service. Inevitably, when man attributes his victories and his accomplishments to the plane of the ego, instead of the plane of the superconscious ego, he eclipses the light of the cosmic sun within his being, and his power, his wisdom, and his love are correspondingly diminished. And so the curtain dropped on an age of great enlightenment with the sinking of the continents of Lemuria and Atlantis, and with their sinking, a great loss of scientific knowledge, of religious principles, of the understanding of energy control. And so we are yet groping to return to that estate of awareness, of understanding, which can only come if we return to the source, to the inner light and the flame, of which all of this accomplishment is the materialization. The moral of the story of paradise lost and of every civilization fallen into ruin is that man must consider God as the origin of all things. Then he will never confuse the fountain with the stream. Jesus said, "My Father worketh hitherto, and I work." Putting that on our chart, the top sphere is the Father worketh hitherto, and the lower sphere is, and I work. And this union of the inner and the outer is what produces the Golden Age. I find it very interesting to study history in the light of what we understand of the teachings of the Great White Brotherhood, to determine what caused the fall of civilizations and why we as a world today are experiencing a decline. We look to Greece in the Golden Age of Athens, one of the richest eras in history, in the history of the entire world, the Golden Age of Pericles, who was the symbol of that age, the reconstruction of the Parthenon, the finest talents of art, of government, drama, came forth in that period. It was a flowering of genius. There was something very special about Greece. It was special because it was a mandala, a pattern of a Golden Age society which the masters of the Great White Brotherhood attempted to outpicture, to restore from ancient Lemuria and Atlantis some of the great works of art and science and the understanding of God government. Moderation in all things, the principle of Greece, of the Greek ideal, reminds us of the middle way of Buddha, the Eightfold Path. Moderation is the middle way of that point of the nexus of the now. The cardinal sin was pride, where the individual would assume the role that was reserved for the gods. And this is the confusion of the lower self and the greater self, of the outer and the inner. Realizing that we are intended to realize the God flame, we sometimes give attributes to the lesser self of God, and then we deify man, and then we have the D-man, the demon consciousness. When the reverse should be true, God in manifestation, the God realization. Moria, the master of Darjeeling, was instrumental in the bringing forth of Greek culture, which came to an end in the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, the warring of the Greek city-states, vying for power, their great jealousy and envy of Athens. During the war, the karma of division descended. A plague carried away a third of the population of Athens, and the rest lost the will to fight, lost the war, and the Greek city-states fell. My observation of this period of history is my observation on a number of periods, that each civilization which we review has the opportunity to materialize or bring into manifestation in the lower part of the figure eight certain attributes, certain qualities that are locked in the inner monad. The spiral coming forth from the higher to the lower is the easiest spiral. It is the precipitation of these inner realities. The purpose of the Greek city-states was to bring forth the perfect government, the perfect science and art, the perfect literature. And their initiation was to unite the city-states in the fiery core of the energies of Alpha and Omega, the perfect balance of Father, Mother of the Tai Chi. When it came time to unite, instead of going within, they rebelled and they repelled, which is a meaning of rebellion, the repelling of the energies of light, the rebellion against this Christos, this word, this logos. It is a test of Gemini, which they failed. Gemini represents the twin flames of the masculine and feminine potential. And when we undergo a test of Gemini, there is an anti-force, an anti-spirit and an anti-matter force which attempts to drive a wedge between these two principles and to divide and conquer, which, as you know, has been the technique of the arch deceivers of mankind since their invasion of the consciousness of man and woman. We find the Gemini test is the test of the unity of the family. It is the test we're facing in society today. divorce rates at an all-time high, crime at an all-time high, and the division and the warring against one another. We see the patterns of ancient Greece repeated within and without. We see the jealousy of the culture of America pounding, beating upon her consciousness from without, producing schism within. This separation of the Greek city-states marks an initiation failed. Initiation is a testing of the individual, the nation, or the planet. These initiations come with regularity. They can be calculated by many means. Some enjoy studying these initiations from the standpoint of astrology. Others use numerology. I like to use the cosmic clock given to us by Mary, the mother of Jesus, for charting the cycles of karma, because to me, karma is the essence of initiation. So we see that the bringing forth of a civilization that rises to a peak. It is the bringing forth of the energies of spirit into matter. It is the conquest of matter. And then, when the conquest of matter is fulfilled, the initiation is to return back to the plane of spirit, or to go within and to anchor in the within all of the attainments that have been achieved without. But every nation and every society has its special test, its special initiation, and so do you as an individual. The difficulty is on the return. The coming down the figure eight is relatively easy. The return back up involves very crucial tests. We see the Roman Empire at its height between 69 and 180 AD. It began its long period of conquering the Italian peninsula about 500 BC. Her victories were gained because of her superior military organization and skill in governing conquered peoples. These are attributes of the discipline of the white flame, the white fire core. And they have not been excelled. At its height, Rome's imperial government was ruled by a strong sense of public service, honesty, and efficiency. In the 3rd century, the basic weaknesses began to appear in the government, the military, economy, and society, which eventually were to lead to the collapse of the empire in the 5th century. The basis of these weaknesses were found in the indulgences adopted by the upper class during centuries of security. Rome disintegrated from the top down. Are we not seeing this occur again? We find that one of the major factors of the failure of a society to move into a golden age consciousness is the failure of its leaders. Without good leadership, there can be no golden age society. Without the rule of your head, your mind, and your heart in union, you don't have leadership in your own consciousness. Without the development of the mind and heart as the balancing of the Tai Chi, the balancing of the yin and the yang, the father and the mother principles, you cannot realize your own golden age. We see that the leadership always represents about the top 1/7 of a population. Those who are serving on the first ray are those who are the leaders. When they use their authority for indulgence, when they fail to be at the nexus of the crystallization of the flame, when they descend only into matter and ignore the cycles of flow, the honor, the nobility, the responsibility of that flow, everything beneath collapses. Then you have the breakdown where the people of the nation or the civilization lose confidence in their leaders. There is this schism, this tearing apart. In terms of leadership and those who follow, you can again see the figure eight. Leadership must represent the macrocosm, the grand design, the larger vision of the victory. And those who are the followers must see how that vision is materialized, is brought into action below. So in society itself, as people assume their roles in the mandala, there must be this flow of cosmic consciousness. When there is the breach, the breach is at the nexus. There's the tearing apart of the two spheres. Instead of unity in that flame of crystallization, there is division and schism. And we find the bulk of the people criticizing the leaders having to resort to intrigue and deceit and patterns that we've seen in leadership in these times in order to preserve their status as leaders. We see the population losing respect for their leaders and turning away from their leaders, and without respect, there is no returning of the honor, the upholding, the support of leadership. Society breaks down. We also must beware that our souls do not lose confidence in our ability to focus that Christ consciousness and that flame of the Spirit. Your own soul can go into a state of depression, despondency, and despair because it does not receive the watering and the flow of the Christ mind, the energies of the Father and of the Mother for that Trinity. So the soul loses hope of its realization of the Golden Age consciousness because it loses its contact. Indian civilization has been predominantly religious. It has been the home of many empires. Two of the most important were the Mauryan, whose ruler was Asoka, 273 to 232 BC. Under him, Buddhism spread throughout Asia, and the Mughal ruled by Akbar in the 16th century. In both cases, the empires were created and sustained by the great rulers, by their consciousness of the flow, by their ability to hold the balance of forces. And the civilizations were lost when the leadership fell into the hands of less enlightened followers who did not have the sense of tolerance and competence of their leaders. Akbar was an amazing leader. His religious beliefs are more modern than the most modern of today. His enlightenment is certainly equal to that of Akhenaten, the ruler of ancient Egypt 33 centuries ago. This is his prayer. O God, in every temple I see those who seek thee, and in every tongue that is spoken, thou art praised. Polytheism and Islam grope after thee. Each religion says, thou art one without equal. Be it mosque, men murmur holy prayers, or church, the bells ring for the love of thee. Awhile I frequent the Christian cloister, anon the mosque, but thee only I seek from fane to fane. Thine elect know naught of heresy or orthodoxy, whereof neither stands behind the screen of thy truth. Akbar was one of the embodiments of El Moria. So the vision of the perfect religion has come forth in the cultures of India and been lost again because there has been the letting down of the flow. Instead of the crystallization of the unity of the Christ consciousness, there has been a crystallization of dogma, of doctrine, crystallized in matter, not in spirit. And so the breaking down of the mandala, the purpose of the civilization and its initiation is failed because of the failure to carry the flame of enlightenment centered in the crown chakra, the flowering of the thousand-petaled lotus, which has been the goal of Eastern meditation for thousands of years. As a society, as a civilization, that unity of energy has never come forth collectively in the people. Any of you who have visited modern-day India can note the same problems which we view in South America. The separation of the elite and the leadership from the masses, extreme poverty in the masses, wealth, indulgence, ignorance of the needs of the people in the wealthy. And so the flow which has to exist in society is broken down. There is the loss of confidence, loss of purpose, and we see the typical Indian peasant not attached to any sense of the whole, but only to his little family, his little community, and that is the total of his life, and he is pursuing the Golden Age consciousness if he is religious. in his own way. But as a nation, India has not come forth with a golden age civilization, failure again to pass the initiation of the going within and of the unity of the whole. China has been the seat of many great civilizations that are a constant source of wonder to me as I contemplate the Akashic records. The dynasties have come and gone. Its greatest talent has been in administering vast numbers of people in a just and efficient manner. And this in itself is the passing of the test, the initiation of spirit, of materialization. The dynasties that stand out for greatest achievement are the Han in the years 202 to 220 BC. He firmly established the Confucian ideal in society, and the Tang, 618 to 906 AD, known for its benevolence and scholarship, especially in the writing of lyric poetry, and the Sung dynasty, 960 to 1279, famous for its art. China has always had the initiation of carrying the flame of illumination. Even in the skin of the people, there is that touch of the yellow ray that indicates the source of this people coming forth from an ancient wisdom, an entire root race destined to bring forth wisdom. And so they have brought forth wisdom. But without exception, the cause of the fall of the Chinese dynasties was the corruption of the civil service system and the subsequent loss of morale which permeated society, thus leaving the country open to invasion and to revolution. Again, leadership. Leadership in its exercise of the will of God, by failure to maintain the flow, can become a bureaucracy, a methodical system of governing without the flame, without the spirit, which we call red tape, a bogging down of government, of civil service, without any impetus that goes back to the source. Without the contact with the source, it loses its structure, and so the entire structure of civilization collapses. This is what happens when there is the crystallization of the God flame in matter. Matter as a structure is realized because the flame is used to ignite it. And the flame is always the center of the atom, the center of the molecule, the center of the mandala if the flame is absent. Then the outer manifestation collapses. This is what happens in the decay of a body going through the trauma of cancer. It is that the inner flame collapses and the organization of the cell collapses, and there is the rebellion of the components against the harmony of the whole. So being outpictured in the bodies of mankind today are the same causes for the collapse of Golden Age societies, societies that could have released a Golden Age. The failure to return to spirit after the creation of the matter is the cause of the collapse, because unless that which is built be consecrated and returned to God, it will eventually lose its inner flame, because the nature of the flame is to return to the level of its source. We find then that societies in a state of decay are decaying because the flame has been withdrawn, and people are so centered in the outer, in the matter, which is no longer materialization, but materialism, that they do not even notice that the flame is gone. And can you imagine such density of consciousness as to be unaware that the flame is no longer in the temple? And so we had the rebuke of the prophets and the Christed ones who said, "Know ye not that your temple is the temple of the living God? Don't you know that you have to consecrate the flame of the Holy Spirit on the temple of your heart, in your heart chakra, in order to sustain that body temple? Destroy this body, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Jesus knew that he could precipitate in matter and withdraw matter because he had the essential flame of the Christ fully developed, and by that flame he would lay down the matter, he would take it up again. Not so miraculous to the Golden Age consciousness, but entirely impossible where we have not kindled the flame, where we do not understand it as the essential element of our nature. We see then that the flame is gone out in our institutions of learning, in our government, in our economy. Where is the standard? The flame is the standard of the Golden Age culture. When it is neglected, when it is no longer enshrined, then there is the decay and the decline. I'd like to read to you an analysis by Arnold Toynbee as he has seen the progress of civilization. Real progress is found to consist in a process defined as etherealization, an overcoming of material obstacles which releases the energies of the society to make responses to challenges which henceforth are internal rather than external, spiritual rather than material. I'm intrigued with his term etherealization because that is the term we use to speak about energy returning from matter back to spirit, or the going from the without to the within. In other words, in the cycles of the yin and the yang which civilization follow, there is the maximum going without that is possible. That's the materialization. And we call it mater realization because it is the realization of the mother flame, or the energies of the white fire core. Mater realization is the basis of building a structure of society. Etherealization is what must take place as the next cycle, as the going within. In America, we have reached an apex of materialization, of mater realization. The height of science, of technology, of achievement. Now is time for the going within. And those who are sensitive to the cycles of the yin and the yang are going within, are reaching for the source, are attempting to etherealize and go back to the within. That which marks the period of etherealization is challenge. The challenge to crystallize back in spirit what has been realized in matter. This challenge must be met by responsible leadership. When we have teachers who are responsible, leaders who are responsible, at that particular moment, which is a crisis, because again it is at the nexus, at that particular moment, it is absolutely essential for a society to have leadership centered in the flame of life. When that 1/7 of the population have that flame, they can carry the whole civilization back to the spirit level, which doesn't mean the withdrawing of the physical, it means the firing of the physical achievements with permanence. Taking the flame of spirit and sealing the whole matrix by the conclusion of the figure 8, starting at the top, going around and returning back again. In this case, each coming without and going within should involve an expansion of consciousness, an expansion of attainment, and even an expanding universe. It is the law of the cycles of nature that each in-breath and out-breath, each cycle of God himself out-breathing a cosmos and in-breathing a cosmos, results in the total expansion of God consciousness in God and in God's manifestation. And therefore, as we understand this law of transcendence, we must understand that the God that is within us is a God ever transcending himself. It is an energy spiral ever increasing its awareness, because life can never remain static and be life. It is the law of life to involute and to evolute. And each involution followed by an evolution and an involution results in the increase. If there is no increase, what is the point of creation? What is the point of energy flow? But it is the increase, the net gain, that contributes to the whole mandala of a cosmos. And of course, scientists have observed for a long time that we live in an expanding universe. Now, Toynbee makes a number of observations of what happens when these challenges going to the internal from the external are not met. When they are not faced squarely, what happens? What happens is decline. Now, we have stated that a great civilization requires a combination of a number of factors: a sufficiently hard challenge to the society, the presence of gifted and a very creative minority capable of properly responding to and solving these challenges. And once those challenges have been met and the civilization is established, then we move in to that leveling period where the creative process is in full flowering and continues to be, because there is that balance. There is a social disintegration, which Toynbee points to, and there is a disintegration of the soul. The disintegration of the soul is my concern, because once the soul goes on a disintegration spiral, it is on the spiral of death and decay, and it cannot be regained. There are teachers who teach that the soul is permanent, but this is not so. Paul said, "The soul that sinneth, it shall die." The soul is the potential to become God by the correct exercise of free will. By free will, the soul can be made a permanent atom in the consciousness of God. The soul is anchored in the matter level, the lower microcosm of our being, anchored in the four lower bodies, in the non-permanent aspect of being, which can be made permanent by the correct energy flow, by the going without and the going within. The soul's return to the upper level of spirit, or the macrocosm of its inner being, is known as the ritual of the ascension, the alchemical marriage. The fusion of the soul into the spirit is the fulfillment of a golden age consciousness, or the Christ consciousness in the individual. The fusion of a society as a group of souls back into that level of spirit is the sustaining of a golden age. Now, the disintegration of society is characterized by a schism between what Toynbee calls the dominant minority, which I have called the 1/7, the leaders, the internal proletariat and the external proletariat. He is talking about the internal individuals of the nation or the state or the society, and then he is talking about the external masses of people, the neighboring nations. When there is a reaction, a rebellion, a revolution against the leadership by the proletariat, there is the disintegration of society. And at the same time, because that society is failing to fulfill what neighboring nations deem it should fulfill in relation to their identity, they also attack. So when schism begins and the breaking away of these forces begins, there is nothing but the driving in of wedges of hatred, jealousy, disintegration, greed, corruption, etc. We see all of this earmarked in our society today, so much so that it is a momentum of disintegration which seems to have gripped the civilization of America and the world. There are schisms in the soul that happen simultaneously. There is the abandon of principles, of ordered living, of mores and morals. There is a rigidity of control superimposed from without. There is the control of the mind. There is the control of the feelings by mass hypnosis through the media, so that the soul no longer possesses its own identity, but is superimposed with what we call brainwashing or indoctrination, impressions from without that are so strong that they override the impressions from within, mainly because the soul has lost its concept, its connection, its contact with its leadership. Its leadership is the Christ self, the Christ consciousness. What Toynbee calls truancy and martyrdom in the place of the sense of duty or the fulfillment of dharma. Truancy, a failure to respond to duty, a failure in responsibility. Martyrdom, preferring to die rather than to live for a cause. The sense of death and dying. A growing sense of drift, promiscuity, and he continues to analyze factors that we can consider obvious in our civilization today. Now, we could go on and analyze the civilizations of Persia, Peru, the Near and Far East, and all that is known in the history of mankind. I am certain that we will find that decline and disintegration of a society or an individual soul is proportionate to the subjugation of what is called the mother flame or the feminine principle. The feminine principle is the white flame that is present in the base of the spine chakra of man and woman. It is the release of the energy of that focus that gives rise to the feminine aspect of man and woman. Unless this energy be raised and drawn up, the other centers of God awareness, called the chakras, do not receive the watering of the mother energies. They receive the impetus and the charge of spirit, or the flow of the I Am presence naturally as the descent of life. But for the return of that energy back up the figure 8 to the macrocosm, there must be the impetus of the mother. We find then in the family, in the home, in the community, in the nation, that the role that is assigned to the feminine principle, to the mother, to woman, determines how high that civilization can rise. But this is not the competition of the sexes. This is not a division of men and women. This is the realization of the feminine potential of us all. The Aquarian age is the age of the rise of the feminine ray. And when that feminine ray rises, we have once again kindled on the altar of being the flame of the Holy Spirit. The flame of the Holy Spirit is the cloven tongues of fire, always twin flames, symbolized as the dove descending, each wing a flame, the body being the crystallization again of the God flame, the Christ consciousness, the Om. The presence of the Holy Spirit in the body temple, in the body politic, must come about through the fusion of the masculine and feminine attributes of the Godhead within the individual and within the family. And so there must be that flow between man and woman, which is not a competition, not the attempt to usurp the role of one by the other, but the natural flow, the natural harmonization of energies at all levels that produces the Christ consciousness, whether in a noble work of art, an organization, a service, or in the offspring. We will bring forth the divine man-child and the Christed ones when there is this balance between mother and father. Marriage, then, and the family as the unit of the Golden Age society is a proving ground. It is a force field of initiation. We must undergo these tests of disunity, of the driving of the wedges between the masculine and the feminine coordinates of the marriage. All that has happened for the decline and degeneration of civilization in the past is again the Armageddon that we find taking place in the family unit today. Without the understanding of the forces of anti-father and anti-mother and anti-Christ that are wedges driven against this unit, we do not understand the initiations. And so we find a loss of identity, a loss of role, competition, warring, and then, of course, there is the factor, which doesn't even exist in a Golden Age society, the factor of karma. Each individual member of the family unit has karma. This karma of this individual rubs the karma of this individual the wrong way. There are personality clashes, and violent schisms emerge because of the coming up from the subconscious of cycles of karma that are destined to be fulfilled, transmuted, put into the flame, dissolved by the action of the Holy Spirit. As we are able to master the balance of flow of energy between man and woman, simultaneously we are mastering the flow within ourselves. The great avatars have proved their androgynous nature by raising the Kundalini fires. This perfect balance of the Tai Chi within the individual must precede the Golden Age consciousness. I'd like to show you how we diagram on these circles the four aspects of God. The four aspects that we are intended to realize as above, so below in the Golden Age consciousness become the four quadrants, the quadrants of alchemy, fire, air, water, and earth. These coordinates of our identity have many names, but they are actually the plus and minus factors of the masculine and feminine ray. In the plane of spirit, Father principle, as law and lawgiver, as the impersonal impersonality, and the flow action between Father and Mother occurs also in the upper half. And each time you have a figure 8 pattern of flow all the way through the cosmos down to a tiny cell, there is this duplication of the figure 8 and of flow patterns. So the whirling of energies and electrons and atoms always follows this flow pattern, and where it is broken, decay, disintegration. Father and Mother. Then you have the Christed One, or Son and Daughter, and then you have the Holy Spirit, or the cloven tongues of fire. Now, in analyzing the city four square, these four are the four sides of the city, the north, south, east, and west. They simply represent force fields and their realization above and below. The same principles apply here: Father, Mother, Christed One, and Holy Spirit. We have four lower bodies, which are four vehicles for the realization of God consciousness. God as Father is realized as the law, the blueprint in the etheric body. God as Son or Daughter, Christed One, realized in the plane of the mind as the air element. The air of the mind, its ability to penetrate and conquest that plane of consciousness. Mother figures as the control of feeling and of the energies of water, a tremendous power in the hand of the mother, and through water she focalizes in this plane all of the aspects of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or this higher Trinity. It is interesting to note that our bodies are about 98% water. Our bodies are the body of the mother. The mother aspect of God provides the platform for the soul's evolution. Our bodies are that platform, so they become the negative aspect of spirit. So matter becomes the negative polarity of spirit. And our bodies, our four lower bodies, in relationship to the whole, are the negative aspect. Father, Mother, in the water plane. Holy Spirit, we find then the key to the Golden Age, because we need to pass through the initiations of the Holy Spirit in order to crystallize in the physical body all that we have attained in the etheric, the highest level, the highest frequency, as blueprint, in the mind as the mentalization of the God flame, or its crystallization through the Christ mind, in the feelings as the fullness of the manifestation of the love of the mother. All of this then must cycle through this figure 8 pattern, and it repeats again here. It goes in a clockwise direction when we are considering only the lower half of the circle. The big test then, right now facing us, is bringing the energies of Father and Son, which we've experienced 2,000 years in the teachings of the Hebrews, the lawgiver, the setting forth of the law and the code, the discipline to the Israelites. Then the bringing of that discipline through the Christ consciousness to the mind, and the quickening of the mind through the teachings of the Christ. Now we come to the Aquarian age, the age of the Divine Mother, the age when the feminine principle must rise within each of us. When it does rise, the rising of those fires through all of the chakras of being, the wholeness, returns us to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit are the cloven tongues of fire, a flame of Father, a flame of Mother, converging on the side of the west of the city four square, the side of the materialization in the physical plane. So we see that the challenge in America today, in the world today, the challenge of the Aquarian age is the union of the Divine Mother with the Holy Spirit we remember that Mother Mary was called the bride of the Holy Spirit, because within her there was that fusion of the masculine and feminine principles. Through her communion with the macrocosm, she was able to draw the energies of the macrocosm into the microcosm, the fusion at the nexus, the womb manifestation. The woman brings forth the man-child. So we are at that point now where we have a choice. Will we go into a golden age society, or will we accelerate the spirals of disintegration, decay, schism that have begun in America and in the world? How can we reverse those trends? We can reverse them. We can reverse them because we have seen that great leaders, great avatars, Christed ones who have come forth, who have realized the God flame, have reversed the whole course of civilization, of death and dying, and the deceleration instead of the acceleration of the God flame. It can be reversed. We yet have time and space. Time and space are coordinates of the mother's consciousness. Kali, the mother of the East, is the incarnation of time, and thus she is also the counterpart of Shiva, the destroyer, because time destroys and time is opportunity. But time and space are the opportunity for sons and daughters of God to realize that mother flame and to use it as the impetus for the upward swing, the return that results in the cloven tongues of fire, twin flames in manifestation, and the bringing forth in the physical plane, in the physical body, of the golden age consciousness in the individual and in society. The teachings of the Great White Brotherhood, of the ascended masters who form that brotherhood, are a step-by-step outlining of how you can realize this golden age consciousness. I know it is practical because I see it work every day in the lives of students who have never before contacted the flame or have an understanding of meditation or going within or working with energies. I see their lives transformed. I see their skin become transparent. I see the glow of fire in their eyes, in their heart chakras, and in all of their chakras. I see them use the flame of the new day, which is the flame of Aquarius, the violet flame, and apply it for transmutation, or the ritual of the Holy Spirit, the baptism of fire that results in the forgiveness of sin, or the balance of karma, whichever terminology you prefer. The balancing of karma, the balancing of the energies of the Tai Chi, is a gift of the Holy Spirit. And when we have that spirit, we have that violet flame. It is the energy which Jesus used, changing the water into wine. Saint Germain used it as the wonder man of Europe when he changed base metals into gold, as the early alchemists were pursuing that science. He also was able to take jewels with flaws and transmute them into perfect stones. This is the control of matter. It's the crystallization of the flame in matter. And the use of that energy, the control of that energy, is the mark of Golden Age man and Golden Age woman. There is a science, there is a religion, there is a way. There is a way that you can realize the full potential of your being. The Ascended Masters show that way. Theirs is not a teaching of confinement or of drawing you into an organization or some type of doctrine or dogma. They simply give forth the teachings. You can have these teachings written as weekly letters from the Masters to their chelas by writing to the Summit Lighthouse. There is a fraternity of keepers of the flame who have discovered the flame and who have vowed to keep that flame for mankind at the nexus of life. Being part of that fraternity, you receive regular monthly instruction, graded lessons on the teachings of the Masters. I want you to realize that the teachings of the Masters have been present throughout history, all the way back to the golden ages of Lemuria. They are not unique to the Summit Lighthouse, and certainly the Summit Lighthouse is not the only organization publishing the teachings of the Masters. It is one source that you can take advantage of, and you will find that there will not be a pursuit of your name or your person for this or that obligation or for joining the ranks, etc. It is simply the free flow of ideas, of energy, of teachings that I know you can find useful and practical in becoming the Golden Age man, the Golden Age woman. This essentially, then, is my understanding of whether or not the Golden Age is a reality. And if we look up, in the sense of looking into the etheric plane, we will find that the Golden Age, as a mandala and as a blueprint for our planet, is a reality now. There is a blueprint for a Golden Age waiting to be fulfilled by you and me, and we find that in this Golden Age society, each of us is indispensable. Each individual is unique for the fulfillment of an aspect of that mandala. The uniqueness of the individual is stressed by the masters, not as a law unto himself, not as a pulling away from the center, but as a harmonization of the atoms and cells in the body of God. The restoration of your individuality, your uniqueness, and your importance in the sight of God, I believe, is a great gift of the Ascended Masters. And every Ascended Master I know is extremely unique. And because they hold a unique position in hierarchy, a unique flame, a unique momentum, we invoke their light, their momentum, their flame, to receive assistance in the discipline of our own energies. This is the concept of hierarchy, and without hierarchy you cannot achieve a Golden Age, because no man or woman can attain a Golden Age society unto himself. He can attain the Christ consciousness, he can attain the ascension, but you know, even that attainment depends on his integration, with what is called the community. The community is the coming into unity with the Holy Spirit and with all who have realized that Spirit. And so our testing and our initiation is always vis-a-vis other individuals. Our response, our reaction to, our comings and our goings, our flowings with others. This constitutes the path of initiation. And we find that that flow and that coming and that going also has to do with our relationship with the Ascended Masters. And so to those of you who are here at a conference for the first time, I bid you welcome to the teachings of the Great White Brotherhood. They are free to all. And the term white refers to the halo of light, to the white fire core of being to which we all return. Members of all races have ascended into the presence of the I am that I am, and form a part of the fraternity of the Great White Brotherhood, Ascended Masters, those who have mastered time and space, achieved the Golden Age consciousness, and found their reunion with the Source. These are the true teachers of mankind. They have released many works, writings, dictations, which you, I'm certain, will enjoy exploring if you have the least inclination toward pursuing your own individual Golden Age and the Golden Age upon Terra as we enter the dawn of Aquarius.